Welcome back to the rest of old school D. Armstrong's birthday Friday, okay? You know, my childhood in Columbus, those days were so nice. I had good friends, really good teachers in schools, and they filled me with so much hope. And here's, there are a lot of my friends who grew up with me. They said the same things. Joining me this afternoon is the curator of the Columbus Museum. And one of the first things I want to ask, are you from Columbus?
Originally from the Columbus area.
Did you have that same experience? This was a pretty cool place.
It's a good place to be from. It's a good place to live now.
What made you decide that you wanted to study history?
Well, growing up, I was just always fascinated about the past. Whether it be old houses or the stories about the battle that occurred here during the Civil War, historic sites, historic markers. I was always intrigued by what happened before my time, and that just kind of led me through a variety of paths to ultimately determine that I wanted to work in the museum and public history field.
Got to ask you, what is your favorite memory, your childhood memory? You look like a youngin', so you may not have a 70s memory, but maybe the 80s. What do you remember fondest?
Well, I just remember fondly coming to downtown Columbus.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was born in Columbus, but we grew up over in Alabama. And when we'd come to town, I always wanted to see the historic parts of town. I always asked my mother to take me through there because I was intrigued by the historic downtown. I think that's one of the things that helped me put me on the path to want to stay there.
And we have done a very good job as far as preserving much of that. Yeah. Let's take a look at the first picture that we have from the museum, and you can give us a little history lesson.
Well, what I've got are a few images that are associated with some of the exhibits that we have. Some of the exhibits that we either have up now or have done recently, they do a few things. They either commemorate the past, they celebrate it, or they investigate it.
Okay.
And this is an image that's in our Civil War exhibition. It's actually an image of Atlanta. But in that Civil War exhibition, we take a look at the impact of the Civil War on our community and on the state as a whole.
Were we as devastated? We all have seen Gone with the Wind. We know what happened.
Well, not quite as devastated as maybe you would have seen in Gone with the Wind, but a lot of the industrial establishment in Columbus was destroyed after the battle that occurred here in Columbus. A lot of people don't realize was the second largest Confederate industrial center outside of Richmond, Virginia.
Columbus, Georgia.
This was a major manufacturing center that was here, and so a lot of those businesses that were right along the riverfront were destroyed right after the battle. Now, a lot of them were rebuilt, but a lot of Columbus's Civil War heritage was destroyed the day after that battle.
Let's take a look at the next image and probably bring back some memories or get some information from that one.
This is actually a map that was drawn from memory by a Columbus resident who was here at the time of the Civil War. He was a young man at that time. This was drawn several years later, but it gives the location with some detail of dozens of manufacturing establishments that were involved in some capacity in producing goods for the Confederacy.
You know, what I see there is probably were not zoning laws, but that area at least was laid out systematically. Didn't seem to be random.
No, no, it was definitely laid out systematically. You're looking at the old heart of current downtown Columbus, and that is the part of Columbus that was laid out by the original city plan when the city was founded in 1828.
So we had a plan.
Yes.
Now, at that time, were there plans for cities, or did they kind of grow up haphazardly?
Well, both, but ours was a planned city. It was laid out specifically at this spot because it was at the head of navigation of the Chattahoochee River, and it was laid out according to that original grid that you see was the original boundaries of the city.
And when you're driving downtown, if you're going 11th, 12th, 10th, and you can see you get the horizontal and the vertical streets that are laid out. And I've always appreciated that because we did travel a lot as children with my father, who was in the military, and you would think, you know, Columbus isn't like that. You know, it's much better. Well, tell us a little bit more about some of the exhibits at the museum.
Right now we're looking at an image from one of the exhibits that I think investigates some of our past, and this is from an era that is really one of the ones that is really kind of controversial. This is an image of one of the proprietors of one of the business establishments in Phoenix City that was raided during the turmoil in the 1950s after the assassination of Albert Patterson. So there were a lot of things that perhaps the community may not want to be known for, but nevertheless helped shape who we are today.
And I wonder if some of the younger people, because I barely heard it growing up, but Phoenix City was a bad place. Shut your mouth.
Had quite a reputation.
Yes, had quite a reputation, and some really bad things, murder, racketeering, and eventually I believe the federal government came and cleaned it up.
Yeah, there was some limited martial law declared in the city, but at the end of all that, Phoenix City was ultimately named an All-America City in 1955 for the progress it had made and the cleanup that had occurred relatively quickly. And of course, one of the hometown people, Albert Patterson's son John, eventually was served as governor of Alabama.
Certainly did.
So there's a lot that came out of it besides just the bad headlines. And the Columbus Ledger-Enquirer actually won a Pulitzer Prize for its coverage of what had happened in Phoenix City.
And I'm sure at that time that took a lot of guts. And that picture that just left us, was that more of the marshals?
That was some of the National Guard that was sit down here to kind of maintain order and restore order.
Tell us about the museum, because we are a community, a mid-sized community, but we have always had such an awesome facility.
It is a really special place. It's one of the largest museums in the Southeast. We interpret American art and regional history. And so we have really two very strong programs with two different focuses, but we take a lot of pride in what we do at the museum, and I think that we're a special place because there's not a lot of museums, especially museums our size, that focus to the extent that we do on both of those programs. So we really have something for everybody in the community.
Do you still have the kiddie programs? My kids grew up going there during the summer. There's another picture.
This image is a lithograph of a steamboat that once plied the Chattahoochee River. It was built here in Columbus. It's the Rebecca Everingham, and it was built here. It was built here. It was widely regarded to be one of the most luxurious that ever sailed on the Chattahoochee River. At one time, there were over 200 steamboat landings on the Chattahoochee between here and Apalachicola, and well over 150, nearly 200 steamboats once navigated the waters of the Chattahoochee. This was a major navigational route between here and Apalachicola for a long time.
Well, thank you so much for being with us, Mike Bunn. You must come back because there's so much of our history that we didn't touch on. I mean, this really is a cool place. Okay. All right. You're super bad. Okay?
You are too.
Okay. He told me to keep on trucking. Okay. All right. That's the curator of the Columbus Museum. Excellent information. Formal Elegance coming up. We have a Michael Jackson tribute and teen trivia on the D. Armstrong Show. Don't go away.